فبعد قليل يقوم السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس الجمهورية بإعلان انطلاق النسخة الثانية من مؤتمر حكاية وطن ما بين الرؤية والإنجاز. هذا المؤتمر الذي يسلط الضوء على العديد من القطاعات الخاصة بالدولة المصرية كقطاع بناء الإنسان الذي تحدثنا عنه في الأمس القريب من محافظة
Yesterday from Al-Ismaili government, and today is a new tale, the electricity and energy sector as well as the economic sector. As we all know that these sectors are Please be seated. Peace be upon you all. I'd like to welcome you all. I'm very pleased having you here today and the next 2 days. And we are going to articulate the story of our nation that we've already announced it the 1 year ago, and today we are going to say the story of Egypt starting from 2011 to now. It is very important to know, and of course you all know and follow, but we are going to say it from the state perspective and what is meaning of a state that went through big challenges that ended nations till now. They never regain their vitality. Some would say, why are you repeating this? Just for remind you, and I said this before you and I repeated it, this that nations never live, grow, just like that. Only through work, sacrifice, sincerity, determination, and honest. And trust is not just words, so welcome you to this. We are very pleased to have you here. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Abdel Fattah Sisi, the President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed, distinguished guests, I'd like to welcome you in the land that is going to always preserved, full of good and renewable hope. We'd like to welcome you all. Yet you are not guests, you are the heroes and the owners of this nation's story. It's only one story, but with many details around several chapters who completed each other's. Maybe the most important hero is the Egyptian citizen that was able all the time to stand deliberately before any attempt that destroyed the nation. The last 10 years explained what I'm saying now. A decade we've all been through, difficult circumstances, yet the Egyptian citizen is capable to confront all the obstacles that tried to set them back on the path of the hope and development. Therefore, anyone wish to project the features of this country should be aware and realize that the main hero and its principles are the Egyptian.
وهذا وقد أثبت المصريون في كل مرة وفي كل زمان
the old Egyptians
أنهم
proved
الحامي
each
والضامن
time through decades that they
لمسيرة
are
البقاء
the
الوطني،
savior to the past
رغم
and
أنف
the
كل حاقد
existence of their
أو
nation
حاسد
despite
أو
any
طامع.
envy or ambitious deeds.
ينفع تحكي لي
Grandpa,
حدوته؟
can you tell us a story?
بكر. أنا
Come Bakar and say
هحكي
here.
لك آخر فصل
I'm going to say
من فصول
and tell
الحكاية
the last chapter of
اللي
this story
ابتدى
that
يوم ما اتولدت
started since you've birth.
في يوم من الأيام.
One day, once upon a time,
كان في بلد،
there was a country,
أعظم بلد في الدنيا،
the greatest country in the history, Egypt, the mother of the world.
في التاريخ
Through history,
وفي الثقافة
in culture that has great people, in art has stars.
لكن لما ليلها ضلم
Yet when they went in a dark night, the people went to the street asking in the central's right. Upon that,
ضاع من بعيد تدخل
from far away, some entered the good land to steal their joy, disseminate the fear and hope in the heart of the country. Didn't you? Afraid? No, we fear a whole country. Thank you. This country is our homeland. We said that they are going to leave. We're not going to surrender to the merchants of religion and terrorists. Behind us was the army. We took to the street chanting, "Come, Mr. Sisi, to denounce the Constitution temporarily." And we regain our spirit once again, as we to the Almighty God to preserve until the Republic system and respect the Constitution and law. We need something to unite us all. A vein of life to go through our land. Within 8 days, the Egyptians, they did the impossible, the unexpected. With closure of the daughter of selling the investment certificate only within 8 days. By our hands who built it, the Suez Canal. But around 11 extremist organizations that was organized by the Shura Council. We lost too many lives of us. We sacrificed their lives and people went to become efforts. You are the sons of the heroes, and I missed my dad, but I knew that he's the Almighty God, and I became the daughter of the martyr. No one ever thinks that the good morals means is that this country would collapse. I swear to the Almighty God, whoever wish to approach it, it will be destroyed temporarily, totally. We had too many challenges that we've never confronted a long time ago before you were born. But we've learned from the crisis, whoever is facing difficult circumstances should confront the problems such as the economy and will go to the slums, the very narrowed roads and the water electricity network that were devastated, that been in the history, and they used to have house and work, to be happy and live a decent life. Do you understand what I mean by a decent life? No? Yes, Grandpa, to be happy, yes, that's true. Because these things were left for a long time, so we had to bear to treat and build our country for you and for your future. Do you remember that we were not going to be able to do, but we were able to work not only in this, in development and work in all fields every day. Too many people suffered from the virus C, and plus many diseases that never been looked after. Despite circumstances, we decided to start making initiatives, medical marches, and a comprehensive development in the health sector that we are always dreamed of. When you see that you tire and complaining of a pain in your stomach, to find a hospital, a qualified place to receive you and to get you treated. Not only any person would need. The project of Decent Life changed the tens of villages. Houses being opened, youths married, and the joy filled the houses. Because of the crowd of the roads, we've decided to complete despite the obstacles and the hinders. We've said that the work should be in place and everywhere. We made a new network to pond the whole republic, ports, means of transportation to ease the life of the people and save our powers. Projects, their goal that the country live again, and to draw the roadmap of Egypt and pave the way for our plants to be operated. It wasn't words, but was the plan of the country that needed to move forward. And the most importantly, education that was full of many problems. Imagine kids like you never learned to write the names, but now new schools were built throughout the Republic in every inch of Egypt. Long live Egypt. Long live Egypt. Therefore, we have to find a solution to build electrical power plants to circle our life again. We've discovered that the most biggest gas well in our plant, and we've ended the rows of the gas and to have a reserve that would save us. Each year we were increasing, therefore people made the slums, so we had to rebuild the new cities with new planning. such as the new Alamein, the new Ismailia city, the new Beni Suef, and in each and every place in Egypt. And we continue to build and change in order to have a place for each child to be protected from goals that destroy a new generation. Who would do so in 10 years? The guests of Egypt return back again throughout the whole world by the efforts of our sons, its people and sons. Our youth had a place. Raised the name of our country. And followed by the COVID-19 to try to remind us. Do you remember when we were there at home? I always remember, and I couldn't meet you and visit you. The WHO talked about 1,500,000 of patients affected of the COVID-19. Everything had stopped, plants and schools, everyone stayed at home. But we were able. Who would think that Egypt, that went through this, would overcome such a crisis? And once we're happy of going back in our work, a big war waged by two countries that entered the whole world in a crisis. But the Egyptian proved that we trusted no matter what, we are going to overcome a new crisis, and God willing, we'll continue the dream we've built as we all united. We were proud of what we've achieved in 10 years by the vision of a president and the will of the people. We've proved that Egypt is not just a country of achievements, but a nation of miracles.
ومهما بتزيد الأعادي ولدها دايما بالمرصاد ولدها دايما بالمرصاد.
هو حدوته خلصت يا جدو؟
The war has come to an end? No, no. We've agreed that the past is still long ahead of us. We are working and we're waiting when we grow up and to continue our tale, God willing. So why are he in the office? Only ask the Egyptian. My grandpa was telling me a tale. Which one? Egypt. So, would you tell us details? What you did for us, or what you wish? God bless you, Mom. A generation after generation, we're going to say the tale of a great nation and a great people, and we're always going to say long live Egypt.
حبيتها أول حب صاحبت أنا وعديت عنها في يوم ما بعد عنها في يوم ما بعد ولا عمري مرة نسيت
indicators and world indicators and movement that carry a new challenge through the social, economic levels as well as political, and create new battles that we are going to enter sincerely to secure a better future for each Egyptian. Through the upcoming 3 days, we're going to tail the nation in different sectors between the vision and achievement. And now we'll summon Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, Mr. Premier, to explore what has been done through the past 10 years in the Egyptian state sectors. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most passionate, His Excellency, Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the President of the Republic, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and a great responsibility to stand before you today to review what the Egyptian state made through more than 9 years of achievement in all the arenas of life that serve the Egyptian citizen. Achievement of all scales that are unprecedented, never happened through decades or centuries in this country, but in fact, to choose the beginning, in fact, was the introduction of the tale of a homeland in the midst of the world economic crisis that posed repercussions and great challenges such as inflation and goods high prices that made the whole countries throughout the world, in particular the developing countries such as Egypt, that suffer the inflation, and the Egyptian citizens, despite this, witnessed all achievement, wondering how we are going to overcome such a crisis. Most importantly, they're asking one more question. When Egypt is going to be a state as such many countries in the world that became examples of success and progress, among of which were having the same circumstances, and we are trying to be like them, God willing. Therefore, the Egyptian citizen is wondering when we are going to be a state of the same strength such as Japan, Korea, China, India, or even Malaysia. We are always wish to note one very important that we should say to each other. These countries, and they never had this achievement in a day and night. Even Malaysia, the beautiful scene there as we are seeing below, we wish that Egypt is going to be the same. Malaysia was like that in 1980. This is Singapore. Singapore, considering the best country throughout the world, started its experience in 1959, and it was that form, as we can see. Germany, its experiment following the Second World War, started from a full destruction and now become the biggest economy in Europe, and became in the picture below. China, the strong and giant model, entering the economy in the world until 78, as shown in these pictures above. This means that these countries never change in a day and night. Things take time, work, and sustainable through decades. Such states as Singapore has 5 million population, but to enable to achieve the development and renaissance, it took more than 20 years to work continuously to be like that. These experiments despite each country that has different orientation, capitalism and socialism, but they were all bonded in five main pillars. That development was the biggest priority as a key solution for their problem, to focus on development projects that the country should be built upon in order to grow, to have a very progressive national program laid out by their hands, and they never had an assistance of world companies due to each country's circumstance and the expansion into expand in the infrastructure in order to attract investments. They invested between 20 to 40% of the GDP through decades in infrastructure. China took 40%, the least country they took about from 20 to 25 to spend in a period not less than 2 decades in order to grow. Most importantly, all these successful models led by a leadership that has a vision and a determination of implementation throughout these states were able to build the base. After they left, the states continued on the same base. These 5 pillars, as I said, that the experiment never ended in 5 or 10 years. As always, we'll find concerns from some people and intellectuals when the Egyptian citizen would feel the fruits of development, despite all the development that took place, always they ask when will be as these countries. We still say that each state, the minimum path, they took 20 years. As I said, China, that the rates of poverty has decreased and announced that after 22 years of continued work in the comprehensive development program of China. 22 years, yet the poverty rate is still the same in this country. On the other side, where are we? Allow me to say something to shock you. In a book issued in 2012 under the title Why Nations Fail in 2012, unfortunately, this book is exploring why countries succeed and some fails. In top of the introduction, the author chose Egypt as a model of the failed country. The introduction of the book talk all about Egypt, talk about the Arab Spring, focusing on Egypt, and the author was asking 3 questions why Egypt is considered the most poverty country, and what are the strains that prevent Egyptians to be most precious? Does the phenomenon of poverty is unattainable and can be erased? And these authors, they went to the academia, people of Egypt, and allow me, despite to agree or disagree with some visions, but the book came from the investigations of Egyptian analysts by saying that the reason the failure of the government to respond of providing the required services of the Egyptian citizen to enable them to live decently. The nature of Egypt is hard. Most of the land, the desert, the natural resources are not enough for the people, but they said something very harmful by saying due to the collapse of the education system, the Egyptian personality had been affected negatively. Therefore, Egyptians started to lack the pattern of the work that may distinguish Egypt from developed countries. By the end of the book, that Egypt in that phase never realized what is required necessarily to make the country most prosperous. That was in 2012. Egypt, and allow Mr. President, even we said this in the economic conference, Egypt never had a complete development experience other than Muhammad Ali model. Our experience followed, started, and face something to hinder the experiment and set us back. I explored the last 30 years, and maybe more than 30 years, from the growth of the Egyptian economy and how it was moved that way. Therefore, we never had a real experiment before that to see what is the direction that Egypt should take in order to reach a developed phase. Where were we in that time? Once we started our tale, a tale of building a nation. Egypt in that time, in 2013, the growth rate was less than 2 to 10%, and the unemployment 13%, and the reserve was decreased to $17 billion. The foreign investment decreased very large scale, followed by a great deterioration of public services as well as infrastructure. In fact, I wish to put these pictures. Some people maybe were in 10 to 12 years in 2012 or 2011 and never imagined that Egypt were in order. Allow me, Mr. President, get the quote that to achieve the balance between the above three regions and to raise the economic growth and to consider the social dimension and to expand the private sector participation in the economic sector by saying that you cannot do only relying in two elements. It is impossible for each country to take the whole three in the same time. All the experiment of the countries to explode started by the first two, the state to lead, to raise the economic growth, to provide opportunities, to make social protection programs, and then the private sector to come to and to complete the execution of the development project. What are the circumstances in 2014 amidst the political dilemma? And therefore the private sector in Egypt, whether it was domestic or foreign, wasn't qualified enough to lead the process of development. Therefore, the state entered to execute this issue. Hence, the vision and the ambition. How could you formulate a complete program of development? To start executing such a program, in fact, I need to have a pause here by saying a very important point. The features of Egyptian state worked on it in the past 10 years. We did not work only in the circumstances of economic crisis, but instability in the political arena and security as well. So we were very concerned how to regain the political stability. And it was obvious, as said by Mr. President, that should confront terrorism and secure peace and security and then followed by the development. And we never done this. We worked in two parallel that had repercussions and too much cost, and it was expected to face something to destroy what you are doing, that would fear anyone to work and join you. But we took this decision and worked upon it. We had the guts to lay out the reform measurement and opponent. We've never took the model of taking the painkillers. We've worked on things that were impossible. Serious movement to eliminate the poverty was by all economists that the multiple dimension poverty by gaining secure house. We've worked upon all the dimensions of poverty, not only one dimension. Another point that we were working from 2011 till now in light of we are working on in the light of an economy of crisis. Since 2011, the whole country faced crisis till 2016, where domestic crisis. We've completed from 2017, 2018, and we started to save the continent, and followed by Corona 2021, as well as the economic crisis and the Ukrainian-Russian war, working in the light of a successive crisis as a state. We don't have the luxury to work in a very stable circumstances. How was the beginning, and what about your vision as the rest of the other countries? Yes, as Mr. President said, there was a planning being laid out. I consider the constitutional development process in Egypt and the urban community plan in 2030, worked by more than 20 experts of Egypt in all fields, gathered through our years, laid out a vision of Egyptian state and laid out a planning. This is the main map showing where are the new cities, the agricultural lands, where is the industry, how could we maximize the Egyptian resources, how could we build a nation. I should take a pause and saying a very important point. Before I start my office, I was working in the academia field, explored all the plans being prepared for the Egyptian state throughout the decades. I cannot claim that this was the picture. That could be the results as the rest of the planning being kept in drawers. The only thing that changed, or the only difference that you should have, as this was a dream to have the desire and will to translate it to on the ground. The matter isn't only related to a dream. The issue is to how to take this to execute it, to build a country. That would differentiate by any planning and others. In order to execute this, what is going to be explored in each sector, to say the planning and what has been executed, the Egyptian state to implement should provide investment in a time that Egypt was suffering all the repercussions. The Egyptian state expended and still more than 10.4 trillion Egyptian pounds in order to execute these projects. One of the most important critics features is to the excessive expending on the state's project. I wish to say, in order to gather all the GDP throughout the 9 years, and by saying this percentage, the 9.4, we're only talking about 22% of the GDP. We've said earlier, in order for the countries to make renaissance, to work from 20 to 40%, we are still in the minimum. If we had the ability to expend more, we should have done this if we are to talking seriously in building a country. But this expenditure wasn't only focused in one place, were distributed in every place in the Republic. We never lifted an inch, never been touched by the process of development. Once more, these were the pictures of Egypt in 2014. Gas, traffic, electricity, terrorist attacks rose before the gas stations, and that even these pictures were the locations of the fun films that pave in the way that something would happen in Egypt, such as just as the revolution. The state took this planning, translated into 3 elements and pivots: how to change the face of life in Egypt, how to make a developed infrastructure to attract investment, to maximize the food security, to the provision of the basic needs, and the fostering the social process. How could we have a progressive program to reform the economy in Egypt? Allow me to explore each one, because the size of work was big, in order to change the vein of fostering development by establishing new cities, elimination slums, development of Sinai. We had a great default, which is the distribution of populations in Egypt. In the Great Cairo and Alexandria, 56% of the urban populations were in this part. Therefore, in the Great Cairo, one of the biggest cities throughout the world, the biggest regions, because of the great expansion of population. The planning said that our dream that Egypt to be since 2013 is 7% of the percentage of the population. In order to reach in 2025, where were we? The executed or the in-place project would cover to be 13.8%, i.e. 14%. Some experts used to say that we should double this. Today, the in-place project, if we distribute in the phase plan, we've reached 14%, close to 2015. That means that by the completion of the reform project would reach the 14%. By the new cities were going to reach the 14%. So the phase of executions in place, it's a matter of time, and we are exerting all the efforts in reaching this goal. So it will be distributed through the more than 14%. In order to do development, you start to do specific areas, the northern coast, the Red Sea, the western delta, the Suez Canal zone, all these zones that the project should be built upon by saying to create in veins and pivots of road, title development pivot, not roads. Yet, therefore, it was important to make this road network and railways and the public transportation system that guarantee that the pivots of development to be achieved cannot be done without having these projects. This is the map of the road network that was laid out in the plan today that we've done, and God, thanks to the Almighty God that we've achieved this. We've talked about veins, not only roads, there are development veins. In order to build a country, you should have this such infrastructure. Talking about in Cairo, by the international banks, quoting that the damages of Egypt in 2014 because of the road traffic would reach 18 billion in 2030. This was the form of Egypt 2014. I only brought the Suez-Cairo Desert Road in 2014 was and now. Once again, in order to be in a developed country, you should have such an infrastructure. This is not a luxury. We are talking about 17,000 kilometers of roads, whether they are new roads or raising their efficiency. This is the form of the road pivots in Egypt that made Egypt to be ranked on the 18th throughout the world with regard to the main roads. Most importantly, the pivots at the Nile that link the east with the west, and we've read about 25 of the pivots, or the axis of the Nile, most of them were finished. In order to have a linkage in each 25 kilometers, that would actually prevent us of taking more than 100 kilometers in order to move above. We're talking about train network, and we're all aware of its difficulties and problems. In order to have a very respectful service and a public transportation, not only of the passengers but for the goods as well. This is these pictures of our stations by entering new systems. We had in the subway that we've already finished with 2 lines, and we've entered the 3rd one, and we've entered the mineral and the electrical express train that serve not only Egypt but the Delta, as well as the developed means of transportation. Moving to the cities, according to the plan, in order to contain all the increase of the populations, is to build new cities. Based on that, we started the 4th generation of the new cities titled the smart cities. Each city had each plan, and how could you renovate each corner of Egypt. It is planning to have 38 smart cities. We have already made 24 of them, and it is planned for 2050. But now we're working in 24 cities. These are the models of the cities, and Mr. President honored us of the inauguration some cities such as Al-Mansoura and Al-Galala, as well as the new administrative capital. Allow me, Mr. President, to say a story here. As such a project faced some critics, even if you reviewed the literatures of the necessity of building new cities from 40 years. And we had an example of the Al-Sadat city. In 2007, it was requested in the framework of developing Cairo in order to elect a new location of a new governmental neighborhood, in order to remove the old place to have a new location. We've chosen 5 locations. I participated in this issue personally as a coordinator. So 4 or 5 experts choose 5 locations. The first one, the current new capital, and the second location to have a governmental location in the east of the city, around 700 Fadan, and the third one, El Warraq land, and the fourth one, the north of the smart village, and the fifth in the 6th October city. How would we choose a new location for a new governmental location? Or the expert ended to take the best location that we are here for, starting from the Nile and building new neighborhoods such as Heliopolis and Nasr City, growing towards the east. So, in order to build it to be the base of the new Cairo. And the second one, that was the new governmental location in Nasr City. And they said that was the most easiest one, and that as the first solution that was difficult, maybe it was better, but required to expend more in the infrastructure. And that should require also a public transportation. By choosing the eastern Nasr city, and despite the expert saying that in the long term would be facing the same problem once again, but the resolution was issued and we made a report. Did we execute the thing? No. Once Mr. President took office by exploring the first alternative that would serve Egypt's vision and its future in order to work on the right phase. But even though it was difficult to take a long time, but for the state it is the right one. We are building a state not only on the 5 years long term, but 100 years. But today, Indonesia announced by making a new capital as well as Jordan, the idea that the capitals, even though we've already discussed this through the societal dialogue by facing resistance, even though Mr. Ghazali, for example, is saying that this is one of the most important projects that benefit Egypt, that would help in developing countries. We are not making a new governmental location, not just for the move, or we are changing, building new state, a new republic, in order to encourage the employee and the Egyptian citizen to innovate and progress for the Egyptian state. And we need to change it in old pattern, such an employee that is actually swapped in millions and piles of files. This is the new form that we are making, and making the new young people to enjoy the work in such a place. This wasn't enough. We also worked upon how to develop the housing system. The Egyptian state worked in a housing program, whether it is a new one, for 1.5 million units of 750 billion Egyptian pound. We build in each inch of Egypt in order to target in the quality of life for the Egyptian state. We're talking for the Egyptian state should enjoy the real life and the basic beautiful life. As you can see, we are building in each place for the low-income person to the above levels. We are fulfilling the desires that we used to suffer before. I wish to show you where was the places before and now. 357 unsafe places were developed by 300,000 units were developed for people used to live in inhumane places. All this program, as you can see, of the same level. We're not just building housing, we are developing the urban communities as the area behind the Magralarion area was a place for collecting all the disposable things. And God, thanks to Almighty God, this is the form that we are, or the shape we are working on it. And the building of the architecture, the Islamic Cairo, Khidewi Cairo, all these shapes and pictures of such areas. Sinai. I'm afraid to say that each day of 25th of April, we are just making some songs and saying the planning of developing Sinai. I'm not underestimating of the old planning, but honestly, we cannot just say this that was in place project. What is being done by in Sinai, we are talking on a full development in each corner of Sinai. We expended more than 610 billion Egyptian pounds, and there will another plan will be announced to focus in developing the notion of Sinai of investment that would exceed 300 billion Egyptian pounds in order to link and all the development of Egypt to be in in Sinai. And another infrastructure that attracting the investment, as said by the United Nations, is the scale of development. Each country without infrastructure wouldn't have any opportunity of attracting investment. We worked in developing the public utilities, of course, that reached 3.10 trillion Egyptian pounds. We used to talk about covering 79%, but we've reached 97% as covered by electricity and water. We've reached around 99% that Egypt is covering all the water projects, and the biggest challenges was the sanitation. Was in the countryside that was 15%, but now it's reached 43%. Through the initiative of Decent Life, would be covering the 100% of the plan by spending hundreds of billions. And the challenge of water, we've already expanded the project by all the production capacity was just to produce 80,000 cubic meters a day. But now it is more than increasing 12 or even 13 double, as we've had a clear vision that each or any development would require the water as well as the power and electricity. What 1.8 trillion Egyptian pounds was spent on the power and electricity power in order to make a network that would serve for the upcoming 30 years by reaching around 59,000 megawatts of all the projects in place executed by the Egyptian state. What I wanted to say that we never wish of the exceptional or temporary crisis to forget us or to make us forget where were we before. But here we are talking about a real infrastructure built by the state in order to have the capability of producing electricity, and we are working that we should have a diversity of the power resources, that we cannot rely on the traditional energy resources. We are working on the green hydrogen. We have a clear plan to reaching 42% of the total production of power to be relying on the renewable energy. As you all know, that need in the sector of the power and oil. This is the picture that was before in 2014, and now we have the biggest infrastructure that make Egypt a real hub of exchanging and producing gas through main infrastructure and projects that would achieve this. God willing, in the upcoming year, to be able in producing all the petrol products such as benzene or solar that should be produced in Egypt. We are going to continue to import, but need to be refined and produced in Egypt. The natural gas to be installed in houses that reached 8.1 million housing units of a cost that reached around 40 billion Egyptian pound. Communication, it is a promising sector, and it is on the Egyptian agenda that require great steps, despite it is the biggest promising sectors of attracting opportunity that is used to maximize the governance and the administration of the Egyptian state. Digital systems, the farmer card, the comprehensive health insurance. Today we are moving to have a new form of services. This is before development. This is the places of the civil registration, the post offices that we are pursued to have this level of the in-place services. It is very clear from the pictures before and after, but yet some services still need this form. 3,000 villages in the second and the third of Decent Life initiative that require development in each thing. Innovation Center, we're reaching a new level of education by entering the fourth industrial revolution, by having schools and university on the highest level to qualify the Egyptian youth to be able to work everywhere in the world. Industrial development, it's always to say where is industry, as it is the future of the state. I wish to say that Egypt is through ages, its participation in the value chains are in the first ranking goods. We do not have the biggest developed industries. We may say the primary and the major industry. In order to build new and real industry that require effort and time, but the issue would require time. Mr. President used to say in order to build a plant that would require 3 to 4 years. So we are in need thousands of plants, but the state is still working in all the industry sectors, and we are having clear planning on that. So we've already provided tens of millions of pieces of land due to the complaints of developers and in specific governance, but it is importantly to have the purpose of development within. It is most importantly it was a must for us so that we should enter in a several number of strategic industries in order to ease the problems of importations in different industries such as the maple as well as the black sands issue that we used to hear about. Today we are working on it strongly, along with the private sector partnership with the domestic or the world partners. We are opening the door, and we also developing the Saheli food, several plans in order to work most efficiently would take more time, but still we never forgot the small and the middle industries upon the direction to expand our steps to establish complexes as the states and give licenses for these to work. We executed 17 industrial complexes by 15 or 5,000 of production units, and they are started to be in place. These are the models of the level of infrastructures. We've never neglected the plants. We found through the feasible study, we found that required development. And the issue is not with the resolution of renovation or dissolution should be taken or based on a very specific and accurate studies. We've seen that the state should have a continued role in this sector and to be continued, followed by the role of the private sector. The SMEs that used to have a great role by loans that over or exceeded or reached the 47 billion Egyptian pound. But a new package of being introduced as the pricing of the pieces of land. We've already made a unified pricing throughout the Republic and the expansion of the real estate taxes throughout the years. But today, our visions, we have 152 investment opportunities in the industry sector that require to import materials of more than 25 billion US dollar. We are working on it of a set of measurement and incentives in order to nationalize industries such to save the importation bill of 25 billion US dollar. We are talking about economy, and I wish to talk about tourism. The Egyptian state, throughout the past 9 years, we've never seen a renaissance as such. We've already renovated more than 200 of antiquities places, and God willing, the Dorat El Tag, it's the crown project of the biggest museum would be inaugurated soon. And we've made several events, as you knew. We've had a timetable of the promoting tourism. We've already established a new destination, and we're talking about by reaching 15 million tourists according to our plan to reach 30 million. That would require also infrastructure, a new destination that contains such and places for visiting in each corner of Egypt, among which got willing to be ready in the fourth quarter of the upcoming year is the St. Catherine city, or Al Tagalli Al Azam, that will be the highest level. Our goal, how to regain the pace of tourism development to be the main pillar of the Egyptian economy, the integration of the economy, or the world economy. We've all learned in books that the strategic pivotal place of Egypt that amongst the three continents. How could we benefit of that in order to divert Egypt to be a real world logistic hub, to be having all the mechanisms of all main infrastructure to qualify to be a world logistic hub that require ports, a network of roads and railways at the highest level to make us, in order to mobile all the goods from each corner in the Republic as soon as possible. This is the planning, by laying out all the ports that are required to be built. The most important one is the project of the new, or the double passways, or the waterways of the Suez Canal. This project that eliminated the idea of replacing the Suez Canal, so they pass only by figures, and the number for each trip, it is for saving the time, it is the most important one. So not only just for making the benefit of moving the ships, therefore the economic zone of the Suez Canal, to also having projects and services to make it a world logistic hub. This only took place in the past 9 years, even though the ideas were there for tens of years. 18 projects are in place, of course, that reach 130 billion. And in the map, as you can see, adding more ports. This is the shape of the ports that we are working, that is actually suits a state, the economic zone, as I said, that require all the industrial zone, either in El Sokna or in the eastern of Port Said, to have redevelopment. Not just to make it as only a pathway for the ships to pass from the east to the south. The Port Said port is ranked in the 10th in the world, and the dry and land ports, that's a new entrance in Egypt, that contains 6 million containers to be or to have a new system. So we are using the dry ports for the storage in order just to keep in such containers in the seaport. In a very short while, we were in Matruh by opening the Al Saloom land port. These are the pictures of the land and dry port logistic places. We are working on 14. The airports, the new network of, we have 23 new airports, and we are developing, I think we are moving, despite complaints of some services. Back to the fourth pivot, the food security, a state that cannot have its food, cannot have resolution. Therefore, the Egyptian state's biggest concern, how could you make the food security? Allow me to talk about the agricultural development. Despite the population and the food bill, as well as the increase of food prices that are doubled, by reaching, and there's an increase due to the high prices or the increase of prices of the wheat. Egyptian state, starting from 2015, started to execute the first phase of the agricultural reform project. We started with the easiest one, that rely in the irrigation of the Nile or the well waters. It started by working in Turkey and Al-Wainat, and by moving the most complicated and difficult one, which is the second phase, in order to treat the agriculture sanitation to be raised against the natural deviation from the engineering perspective. It is a difficult way in order to benefit in each drop of the water. Based on such technology, we are reforming the new Delta and Sinai based on such new technology. Today, we're working around 4 million fadan to be added in the agricultural land of Egypt. With around 2.3% to be added in the upcoming 2 to 3 years in these projects, in order to achieve the food security in a state of 2.5 million persons added each year. These are the projects that the Egyptian state is expanding and investing. As always, what are the projects of the Egyptian state? As we've seen, how could we achieve the idea of the self-efficiency? We are working on the greenhouses project. We are one of the biggest countries throughout the world of 100,000 greenhouses that in place to have a productivity would fulfill all the Egyptians of all the vegetables. The cellars, our capacity never reached 1.10, and now we've reached 3.5 by reaching more than 5 million tons. In order to have infrastructure for securing the food security, I wish to cast the light of treating the agricultural sanitation by establishing giant plants and making or treating the capacity that would reach 13 million cubic meters of each million of fadan. On top of which, the new delta that they're talking about with 1.2 million fadan, along with a new plant, the biggest one in the world, by producing 7.2 million cubic million water a day. Such a project, as an engineer, was one of the 4th to the 5th doubles of the high dam. By finishing, as we've already made more 4 and 5 new high dams. We're talking about lakes that is against of the natural gravity, alongside of the elevation plant of 12 and El Mahsama as well, in order to prevent 470 million fadan by transporting the water. And the project of the treatment of water in Bahr al-Bakr has finished, transporting the water in order to regulate 500,000 Fidel in Sinai, developing the animal will as well as the poetry center that weren't in appropriate level, dedoubling the chips in order to have a proper coverage of food and of meat and poultry, as well as the fishing farms that started in Galion or Sinai, developing lakes. Egyptian lakes along hundreds of years were deteriorated, diminished, but we have Mariut and Al-Manzala, Al-Bardawil and Idko are facing development in order to regain the fishing wills and the first pivot their basic needs and services. Going through education, but I wish to remind you in 2014 our rank was in 108, and the prior of the university education, what has been spent in the last 9 years was 9 trillion Egyptian pound, more than 100 billion were in new investment in order to change the form of educators as well as the students. Schools still in the same shape, yes. We still have a long way ahead of us. Centers in the village and the rate of crowd in the class that would require to double the building in class in order to reach the proper number, which is from 35 to 40 students per class. We are talking about around 120,000 classes were built over 40 billion Egyptian pound. And we've decreased 5 degrees of illiteracy and leaking from the education, but it is importantly to enter new education systems such as the Japanese schools and technological schools in order to develop the whole system. And the university education, we were in the 50 university, and now we're mostly double the price. The number of the university in order to fulfill the needs of Egypt to the upcoming 20 years. Still, we need new types of universities, such as technological ones, in order to go alongside with the new era. Mr. Minister never actually had a chance to show the university or the hospitals. Now we've reached 120, and by adding 37 of 43 beds in order to serve our country. The health care that has the biggest share of development in the state, once again, and totally sorry, this is the form of our hospital in 2014, backed by saying, do we still have health unit in that shape? Yes, we still need to develop and work in order to have all the hospitals in that way or in that form. I only just wish to put before you that this is what has been done in this sector, that been facing the double of services, and we've already entered new complicated projects such as the new plasma that we were longing to have, the development center and the vaccines complexes, as well as treatment upon the cost of the state, 87 billion Egyptian pound, starting in 2014 by 3 billion, and the number of beneficiary, we've already treated 17.5 million Egyptian patients at the cost of the state. This was the shape, and we became the comprehensive health insurance system that cover more than 6 million Egyptian citizens of 51 billion Egyptian pound as cost, following till 2013 to enter the rest of the governorates of Egypt, the initiatives. We never had a biggest move in this sector without an untraditional thought through the initiatives of ending the waiting list of 100 million health and the elimination of virus C. Egypt used to be the biggest countries throughout the world of the percentage of affecting the virus C. Thanks God, within a few days, Egypt would be announced that it's free of virus C. And it was a dream that affects each family of us that would reach these cases and the suffering that we all know, the social care. In fact, this issue, the state took a big concern along with the economic reform. That was the biggest concern of the social care. More than 2.3 billion were spent, such as the Takaful al-Quran started. 1.7 million Egyptian family were benefited of this project, and we're talking today about 31 billion, along with the increase in number of population, as well as the percentage of families around 20 to 25% of needed, so the need had to be double. Along with the development of increasing the education is not only linked to give money, but with specific targets. The total governmental spent on the scholarships has reached 400 billion Egyptian and more billion Egyptian pound. Bread was 18 billion. The last year reached 91 billion. This Egyptian state had the burden, the cost of 28 piastres in 2014, but now is 1 Egyptian pound, still be sold at the same price. Not only on the same number, but we are seeing the increase that reaches 71 million beneficiary, as well as the catering is to 36 billion Egyptian by developing all the offices and the outlets in culture, sport and news. My colleagues in the ministry explored the development that took place and the size of project in Ismailia, but I just wanted to explore some pictures. Now it is time for the biggest project, and I say this very honestly. If I've done only this project, that would be enough for Mr. President's efforts. More than 4,600 village, maybe around 100 years, never had an activity to take place. And I'm afraid to say that the size of the negligence and deterioration, so that made us that this project to take the time and its complications and the lack of the raw materials. And now we're talking about the project would take from 2 to 3 years of each phase. But this first phase would reach 18 million Egyptian citizens that their lives would be changed by developing all the services, gas and health units, all the government complexes, post offices, the youth center, in the lakes, their shapes before and now, and installment gas. God willing, this year we are going to start the second phase of 52 centers of 1,683 villages. Maybe we've already started some preliminary work. The last thing that the institutional structure reform of the state, such as the environmental places, by working incentives, launching reforms of the industrial reforms in the framework of legislations of already stipulated 14 new laws for the investment of investment, infrastructure in supporting investment, launching investment opportunities, establishing investment services centers that received more than 2,648 complaints to minimize the period of issuing the industrial licenses to be only for 20 days, and they integrate all the approvals altogether, and the system of the remote litigations in the court, that was the biggest infringement, and launching a unified electronic system to disseminate the projects in order to giving up the paperwork and expansion of issuing the golden license. We are working in 24 corporations. 15 of them started the operations of their projects. We had all the industrial persons, the issue of the ownership or the privatization of the projects. So we make it the industrial authority to give the license and the giant project for each investor to allocate the land in order to establish and issue the golden license. A package of the high supreme investment, 22 measures being laid out, executed by an additional investment incentives. Mr. President talked about the Egyptian state is one of the few states to issue this document to determine the state ownership, the role of the state, the sectors that the Egyptian should be within, and the other sectors that the state should be going out of. Even the issue of the offers, we are working on it by executing according to the measures in order to activate and execute the document. In the field of competitiveness protection, we've launched the strategy and unified their laws and new laws to denounce any incentives of the state-owned projects in the investment activities in order to have the equality. And the institutional reform, it is a very important point to working in by confronting the administrative corruption, and these all the steps we've made by launching the national strategy, establishing the National Academy of Confronting Corruption, launching the digital Egyptian portal to added the electronic portal of the complaint system by, along with reforming the administrative system by transporting to the new capital. Despite the challenges, the Egyptian state and the Egyptian economy, by all the institutions, by saying that the Egyptian economy is to be considered one of the biggest economy of the world in 2030. Most importantly, through the side of the work being done, I have only 2 to 3 slides. Most importantly, that we should all take care of. Each year, 1 million young men and women entering the labor market. In 2014, the percentage of employment was 13.2%. Thanks to the Almighty God, now we are having 7.2. This not only by decreasing 6 points, it is more than that, but by creating the opportunities that give the hopeful eyes that this country is theirs and a new life will be awaiting for them. In 2012, the book was saying that Egypt is a model of a failed country. Before Corona, all the institutions used to say that Egypt, through its path to be the biggest economies on the world, some would say within 7 years, some would say 15, just by giving you how they looked at us. Followed by 6 years of work and effort before the crisis that hit the whole world, that all the world is being crippled in such a crisis. All as we've explored, ultimately the Egyptian citizens' biggest concern, how are you going to do or deal with the inflation, increase in prices, and the Egyptian government plan to overcome such a crisis and fill in the gap of such food crime. We are going to explore in the last session, in exploring in a very brief how we are going to work upon our vision, despite, as I say, there is no country without any exception is not suffering of such a crisis. But what I should put here by concluding, this does not mean to losing the trust in our country. This does not mean that we are not working wrong. Throughout development, each country faced obstacles and hinders when they are working. None of them took a step back by saying, no, we are going to continue. It is most importantly this trust in the past. What we are building a nation, we are building a nation, maybe not for us. It is only, I may say that the current generation is the only generation that suffer, but trusting in Almighty God, trusting this path that God willing the state is going to continue and our sons are going to enjoy, and some other countries would put Egypt on the map by saying how Egypt made this and God willing, and by the hopeful support of the Almighty God will continue in the main 5 pillars. Development to be the priority, national program built upon the Egyptians, projects to continue our infrastructure, not to give up, not by saying when, as long as we are having a leadership of a vision and a will of a reform and development and execution, God would help us. Mr. President, allow me, you've already made a book, documented all been done for the different states throughout the past 9 years. Allow me to give it to you because as the effort of the different states to be distributed for all to know what has been done throughout the past 9 years of miracles. Thank you, Mr. President.
سيادة الرئيس لو حضرتك
Mr. President, if you have any intervention, you have the floor, Mr. President, and in the name of Allah, I'm not going to comment of what has been said, explained and explored by Dr. Mustafa, Mr. Premier. But through the upcoming presentation, I would be having a chance of intervene. I just wanted to say this is the thing we have done, and you have a good chance for a change in the upcoming elections. Some would say yes, it is all up to the Almighty God. Whoever wish to have something would gain. What is being said by Dr. Mustafa in each part, it might take us hours to talk about each part in all details. I wish to say only one thing for the Suez Canal, because this was doing, or not only in amidst the war of confronting terrorism, that was all been done amidst suspicion. There was no appreciation for what you are doing for them, but also was some sort of abuse for you, and not only for you or for yourself, but each lie would have a reward, or abuse has a reward. It's not going to go in, like, if we do believe in Almighty God and to be having a day for judgment, I'm not going to be held any accountable. It is up to the Almighty God for all the lies through the past 10 years. It was an extension. That's why I mentioned the Suez Canal. Building was an extension of building in a state of untrust for the Egyptian, a portion of Egyptians suspicious. It is building at an intellectual thought through the 40 years, and they were thinking of building a nation through such a direction. A nation cannot be built but upon the production and reform, not a destruction, no suspicion or unjust by saying in an official work that this work is having faults. I actually underestimate them and their works. I'm just laying just over their done. Well, some politicians along with us some would say that why are you saying that you have a chance or an opportunity for a change in the upcoming elections? Listen to me. As we said in the Holy Quran, that it's all up to the Almighty God. It is no one. It's only Almighty God who gives the power to a person. It's up to His will. No one would give someone a thing or take some. Listen, I say many of the people through campaigns and politicians, some would say, God willing, that Allah would judge us, but do we all believe that it's all up to the Almighty God and we only get our share to take it or to fight for this homeland, but it's share from the Almighty God because it's a matter of a state. It's a problem previously. They've just taken the trust in themselves, not only in us. People never believed by only making a road and a bridge by saying that it's too much. How come you're saying so? It is very early of work, effort and determination. Listen, if building, development, progress, the price of hunger and suffering, do not say, Egyptian, no, it's better to eat. I swear to the Almighty God, if the price of progress and the prosperity of the nation not to drink or eat, so it is better not to eat or drink. Some would say, why are you saying? So just to please allow me to say only a few words. A long program ahead of us. Oh people, if you wish to have a place on the map in a nation of 95% of its space is desert. 95%. So please listen to me. A person cannot be honest or pursue to be honest, to be registered before the Almighty God as an honest people, and it is in the other way around. If they actually wish to pursue lies, to be registered before the Almighty God, they are liars. Each day for the people that the size of unjust and lies, it is that you cannot imagine. Back to the Suez Canal, the mistrust and the lost hope that formed the Egyptian. It was the first thing to make the Suez Canal is that was just an attempt of uniting people. Yes, it was a plan for the authority, but I wish to say something that I never said it before. When we used to do so, Dr. Ashraf Salman, the Minister of Investment, was saying to me that the financial metrics of the project
يعني عايزين نعمله باقتصاديات قلت له طيب بس انا عايز ادي الامل للناس
I
كانت الفايده
by
ساعتها
saying that the interest was 10 to 0.5%, I said to them that we are going to announce to open the door of
انشاء القناه
contributing
12%
the
عشان
establishing the canal of 12% in order for the people to
يقوموا يحسوا ان
move
في
quickly,
حاجه كبيره هم بيساهموا
give
فيها
their money
يخلص
by
المشروع اللي
feel and
بيخلص
to feel that
في
they
3
are
ل 5 سنة
doing something
ويكمل يا
big
وزير
and to
ربنا
end the
يكرمك
project from 3 to 5
ويكمل يا
years.
وزير
And
ربنا يكرمك
I wish to
ده ما كانش يتعمل
Kamil al-Wazir to be
ابدا في
blessed
سنة
that
ابدا
this
ابدا
cannot be
ابدا
done
ولكن
in
ربنا
a
سبحانه
year,
وتعالى
but
الباني طالع الباني طالع
the builder is
المصروف المالي
shown,
64
but
مليار
the
أو 60
financial
مليار،
matrix
63 مليار زي ما
was 68 billion
هيبقى عليهم عوائد الحكومة
of
هتدفعها.
revenues paid by the government as a burden, but the financial influx of the project could be done within 1 to 2 years. But I had a burden as a state to provide the profits for the project to the people. But the main goal was that I never looked at the commitment.
جموع المصريين اللي قدمت 10,000 واللي قدمت
Some give 10,000, 20,000, so it was just a big block of Egyptians. The revenue of the canal from far to was 4 to 5 billion, but I said today we are actually ending 10 billion and 10.5 by the end of 20 to 23, 10.5 billion US dollar. The idea was just, or a great part of its goal is just to regain the trust that they are attempting now to take in it. I thank Dr. Mustafa This was done amidst the terrorism, and just remember we used to be here on the stage by receiving the families of the martyrs. As I always say, these families cannot be forgotten. We should take care of those who sacrificed and for those who paid their lives. So I thank you, Dr. Mustafa, and allow me to take these gatherings and divide them into groups to enter each ministry. As I said that we haven't covered the administrative reform took place in each place in the government, and here in the capital, buses to come to take the people, and as you do not actually show it in the media, you're showing the Ministry of Supply with showing the scratched sign. You shouldn't have only dreaming of a piece of